Their arranged marriage became real love. Duke read her diary. She loved him for 5 years. Rain hammered against the windows of Maromere House like accusations. Sebastian Wycliffe, Duke of Maromere, sat at his desk in the library, rubbing exhaustion from his eyes. Another evening of estate accounts, another night of going through the motions. At 32, he'd perfected the art of duty without joy, responsibility without warmth. He needed the land survey from 3 years ago. His hand reached for the locked drawer where important documents lived. The key turned smoothly. He pulled the drawer open. A small leather diary lay on top, wrapped with a faded blue ribbon. Sebastian stared at it. This wasn't where he kept personal items. This was Clara's desk too, technically. They shared this library, this house, this life arranged 5 years ago by practical families with practical concerns. The Everden family needed connections. The Wycliffe family needed stability after scandal. Clara and Sebastian needed nothing from each other except courtesy, which they'd maintained perfectly for 5 years. Sebastian should close the drawer, return the diary unread, respect his wife's privacy. But a line on the open page caught his eye. 5 years today, and he still doesn't know. His hand moved before his conscience could stop it. He opened the diary fully. Hello, lovely. If you're enjoying this story of an unexpected partnership born from obligation, tap like, leave a quick comment, and subscribe so YouTube knows to bring you more stories you'll enjoy. And if you're up for it, tell me your first name or where you're watching from in the comments. I read every note, and it always brings a smile to my face. The handwriting was Clara's, neat and careful, the way she did everything. The date was recent, just 2 weeks ago. 5 years today since our wedding. Sebastian thanked me for organizing the tenants' dinner, the way he thanks Mrs. Gale for managing the linen cupboard. Polite. Distant. Perfect. I smiled and said it was my pleasure, which is both true and a lie. My pleasure comes from making him comfortable, from seeing him less burdened. But he doesn't see that. He sees duty being fulfilled. He sees a wife playing her part. He doesn't see me. Sebastian's chest tightened. He should stop. This was worse than reading correspondence. This was her private heart. He kept reading. Sometimes I imagine what I'd say if I had courage. Sebastian, do you remember the garden party at Thornwood? Before we married? You found me hiding behind the rose arbor because Lady Pemberton had just announced loudly that plain girls shouldn't waste pretty dresses. You sat beside me and talked about roses for 20 minutes like I was the most interesting person there. You made me laugh. You made me feel seen. I fell in love with you that day, and I've loved you every day since, through 5 years of marriage where you treat me like an honored guest in my own home. Sebastian's hand shook. Thornwood. He remembered that party vaguely, remembered talking to someone about roses because the social performance had exhausted him and he'd needed honesty. He didn't remember it was Clara. Didn't remember it mattered. He turned pages, reading entry after entry. Not complaints. Not bitterness. Just tender, funny observations of a woman loving a man who'd never thought to look for love. Today Sebastian defended Annie when Lord Blackwood made that cruel joke about her accent. He didn't raise his voice. He just spoke with that quiet certainty that makes men twice his age reconsider their positions. It's the same voice he used at Thornwood when he told me that anyone who couldn't see beauty in unconventional things had never really looked at anything. I wanted to kiss him then. I want to kiss him now. Instead, I smiled and poured more tea like a proper duchess. Sebastian felt something crack open in his chest. 5 years. 5 years of Clara loving him while he treated their marriage like an administrative responsibility. 5 years of her making his house a home while he'd barely noticed the warmth she created. I don't regret loving him. Even if he never knows, even if I spend 50 years being the invisible duchess, I don't regret it. Love isn't something you choose based on whether it will be returned. It's something that happens, and you either honor it with dignity or let it make you bitter. I choose dignity. I choose to love him quietly and let that be enough. Footsteps in the corridor. Clara's footsteps, light and purposeful. Sebastian snapped the diary shut, his heart racing with guilt and revelation. He shoved it back in the drawer just as the library door opened. Clara entered, elegant in a simple evening dress of deep green. Her dark hair was pinned neatly, her expression pleasant and neutral. The face she always showed him. The Duchess mask. "I'm sorry to disturb you," she said with perfect courtesy. "I wanted to let you know Mrs. Gale has prepared your study for tomorrow's meeting with Mr. Pritchard. She mentioned the ledgers you requested." "Thank you," Sebastian managed, his voice strained. Clara's eyes flickered with concern. "Are you unwell? You look pale." "Just tired." "The accounts." She nodded, accepting the explanation. "Shall I have Mrs. Gale send up tea?" "No. Thank you." "Clara," he stopped, not knowing what to say. "How do you tell your wife you've violated her privacy and discovered she's loved you for 5 years while you've been blind?" "Yes." She waited, patient as always. "Nothing. Good night." "Good night, Sebastian." She left with that same polite smile, closing the door softly behind her. Sebastian sat alone in the library, rain still hammering the windows, and understood with devastating clarity that he'd been living beside love for 5 years without recognizing it. And now that he knew, everything had to change. 1. The morning after reading Clara's diary, Sebastian woke with the weight of shame and determination pressing on his chest. He'd spent half the night awake, replaying 5 years of marriage through a new lens. Every polite conversation. Every efficient household decision. Every moment Clara had smiled and performed her role perfectly while loving him silently. He couldn't unknow what he'd read. He couldn't undo the violation of reading it. But he could change what happened next. Sebastian found Clara at breakfast, reviewing menus with Mrs. Gale. The housekeeper, a sturdy woman with iron-grey hair and opinions about everything, looked up as he entered. "Your Grace," she said, surprised. Sebastian usually took breakfast in his study. "Shall I set another place?" "Please." Sebastian sat across from Clara, who blinked in obvious confusion. "Is something wrong?" Clara asked. "The estate meeting isn't until 10. "Nothing's wrong. I thought we might breakfast together." Mrs. Gale and Clara exchanged glances. In 5 years of marriage, Sebastian had joined Clara for breakfast perhaps a dozen times, always when duty required discussion. "Of course," Clara said, her Duchess mask firmly in place. Mrs. Gale was just reviewing the menu for Saturday's dinner. "What do you think of it?" Sebastian asked Clara directly. Clara paused. "I think Mrs. Gale has excellent judgment." "That's not what I asked." "What do you think?" Another pause, longer this time. Clara's fingers tightened slightly on her teacup. "I think the lamb course might be heavy following the fish. Perhaps chicken instead? But if you prefer." "I defer to your judgment," Sebastian said firmly. "This is your household to manage." Something flickered in Clara's eyes. Confusion? Suspicion? She nodded slowly. "Then we'll do chicken." Mrs. Gale's eyebrows had climbed toward her hairline, but she merely said, "Very good, Your Grace," and left to terrorize the kitchen staff. Sebastian tried to eat normally, tried not to stare at his wife across the table. Clara picked at her toast, her usual appetite apparently missing. "How did you sleep?" he asked. "Well enough." "And you?" "Poorly." Truth seemed important now. "I've been thinking." "About what?" "About how we've been living. About whether we might try living differently." Clara set down her teacup with careful precision. "Sebastian, if this is about the Pemberton dinner, I already apologized for the seating confusion. It's not about that." "Clara, when was the last time I asked about your day? About what you think, not what needs doing?" She stared at him. "I don't understand what you're asking." "I'm asking if you'd like to take a walk with me after breakfast. No estate business. No social obligations. Just a walk. It's raining. Then we'll walk in the conservatory." Clara studied him with an expression Sebastian couldn't read. "Finally," she said, "are you feeling unwell? Should I send for the doctor?" Despite everything, Sebastian almost smiled. "I'm perfectly well. I'm trying to be a better husband." "You're a perfectly adequate husband already." "Adequate." The word landed like a stone. "Is that what 5 years has earned me? Adequate?" Clara's face went carefully blank. "I meant no insult. You've been everything a duchess could reasonably expect." "What about what Clara could reasonably expect?" "Not the duchess. You." The silence stretched. Clara's fingers trembled slightly before she pressed them flat against the table. "I don't know what you want me to say," she whispered. "The truth. Whatever it is. The truth is I'm confused. You're acting strangely, and I don't know why." Sebastian wanted to confess. Wanted to tell her he'd read her diary, seen her heart, understood his own blindness. But shame kept him silent. "How do you admit such a violation?" "I'm trying," he said instead. "That's all. Just trying." Clara nodded slowly. "Then I accept your invitation. A walk in the conservatory sounds lovely." They walked among the palms and ferns, rain drumming on the glass ceiling above. Sebastian tried to make conversation, tried to ask questions that might lead Clara to share herself. She answered politely, her walls high and steady. Over the following days, Sebastian's behavior grew more obviously unusual. He waited for Clara after dinner instead of disappearing to his study. He asked her opinion about tenant cottage repairs and actually implemented her suggestions. He remembered she liked tea with honey and made sure the footman knew. And one afternoon, in a fit of determination, he attempted to make tea for her himself. Mrs. Gale found him in the small kitchen off the library, staring at a pot that had somehow produced liquid the color and consistency of mud. "Your Grace," she said carefully, "what have you done to my teapot?" "I was making tea." "That's not tea. That's a crime against beverages." "I used leaves." "How many?" "I don't know." "A handful." "A handful." Mrs. Gale picked up the pot, examined it with the expression of someone discovering murder, and set it aside. "Your Grace, with respect, never touch my kitchen again." Sebastian heard a sound behind him. Mr. Pritchard, the estate steward, stood in the doorway with a ledger under his arm and poorly concealed amusement on his face. "Pritchard," Sebastian said heavily, "not a word." "I wouldn't dream of it, Your Grace." Pritchard's lips twitched. "Though I feel compelled to report this incident in my household accounts. Perhaps under domestic disasters or reasons to hire more staff." "You're enjoying this?" "Immensely." Despite his embarrassment, Sebastian felt something unfamiliar. Lightness. The simple comedy of failure shared with people who could laugh at him without malice. Mrs. Gale shooed him from the kitchen. "I'll bring proper tea to the library. You go sit down before you hurt yourself." Sebastian retreated, finding Clara in the library already. She looked up from her book, took in his expression, and raised an eyebrow. "Did you just attempt something domestic? How did you know? You have flour on your sleeve." Sebastian looked down. He did indeed have flour on his sleeve. He had no idea how. "I was trying to make tea," he admitted. "Tea doesn't require flour." "I'm aware of that now." Clara's lips curved in a smile. A real smile, not the Duchess mask. Sebastian felt his heart skip. "That's very sweet," she said quietly. "Ill-advised, but sweet. I wanted to do something for you." "Why?" The question hung between them. Sebastian searched for words that were honest without being a confession of diary reading. "Because you do things for me every day, and I've never properly thanked you." "Not really. You thank me all the time." "The way I'd thank Mrs. Gale," Sebastian said, remembering her diary words. "Polite. Distant. You deserve better." Clara's smile faded. She closed her book slowly. "Sebastian, what's happening? Why are you suddenly acting like we're courting?" "Maybe we should be. We're already married." "Then maybe I should have courted you before we married instead of just signing documents and assuming duty was enough." Clara stood abruptly, her composure cracking. "Stop. Please, just stop. Clara. I don't know what game this is, but I can't play it. I've spent 5 years building walls that keep me safe, and you can't just knock on them and expect me to open up because you suddenly decided to be charming." She left before Sebastian could respond, her book forgotten on the chair. That evening, Sebastian noticed something. Clara's diary was missing from its usual place in the desk drawer. He felt cold certainty settle over him. She knew. Somehow, she knew. Too. Clara found the blue ribbon 3 days after the tea incident. It was tucked among Sebastian's papers on the library desk, half hidden but unmistakable. The same ribbon that had wrapped her diary for 5 years. Her hands shook as she picked it up. She'd noticed the diary missing 4 days ago and told herself she'd misplaced it. Moved it during cleaning. Left it somewhere absent-mindedly. But seeing the ribbon here, in Sebastian's space, shattered that comfortable lie. He'd read it. He'd read every private thought, every confession of love, every vulnerable moment she trusted to paper because paper wouldn't judge or pity or use her feelings as leverage. Clara sat down carefully, her legs suddenly unsteady. 5 years of secret love, exposed. 5 years of dignity, stripped away. He knew everything. That's why he'd been acting strange. The sudden attention. The questions. The tea disaster. He'd read her diary and now he was what? Pitying her? Feeling guilty? Trying to manufacture feelings because he'd discovered hers. Clara felt something sharp and painful lodging in her chest. Not quite anger. Deeper than embarrassment. This was violation dressed up as revelation. She found Sebastian in his study that evening, going over accounts with Mr. Pritchard. She waited in the doorway until Pritchard noticed her, gathered his papers with admirable speed, and excused himself. "Your Grace," Pritchard murmured as he passed, his usual dry humor absent. He knew trouble when he saw it. Sebastian stood as Clara entered, his face wary. "Clara, did you read it?" Her voice was steady, controlled. "My diary. Did you read it?" Sebastian's face confirmed everything before his mouth opened. "Yes. All of it. Yes." He moved toward her. "Clara, I'm sorry. I was looking for a document, I saw it lying open, and It wasn't lying open. It was wrapped and put away. You unwrapped it. You opened it. You read it knowing you shouldn't. You're right. I have no excuse. Did it satisfy your curiosity?" Clara heard her voice going cold, the Duchess mask becoming armor. "Did you enjoy discovering how pathetic your wife is? 5 years of loving a man who sees her as furniture. That's not what I thought." "Then what did you think?" The control cracked. "What did you think when you read about me falling in love with you at Thornwood? When you read about me lying awake trying to remember conversations you forgot immediately? When you read about me being so desperate for crumbs of attention that I write about them like treasures?" "I thought I'd been blind," Sebastian said quietly. "I thought I'd wasted 5 years treating you like a contract instead of a person. I thought I'd been given a gift and never opened it because I was too busy being dutiful. So now you're trying to make it right? By making tea and asking questions and pretending to care." Clara's hands clenched. "I don't need your pity, Sebastian. I don't need you performing affection because you feel guilty. It's not performance. Yes, it is. Everything between us has always been performance. The polite marriage. The efficient household. The perfect Duchess and the dutiful Duke." Her voice broke slightly. "But my diary was real. It was the only real thing I had. And you took it." Sebastian's face showed pain, but Clara couldn't afford to care about his feelings right now. Not when her own were bleeding out. "I'm leaving for Bath," she said. "My aunt has been asking me to visit. I'll stay there a few weeks." "Clara, please. I'm not running away. I'm taking distance because I feel exposed and unsafe, and I need space to think without you suddenly acting like a different person because you read my private thoughts. What can I do? If you're enjoying this story, I'd be so grateful for a like and subscribe. It helps me bring you more stories you'd love." "Nothing. There's nothing you can do. You can't unread it. You can't unknow my feelings. You can't make this better with tea or questions or sudden attention." Clara moved to the door, needing escape. "Just let me go. I thought this marriage was duty," Sebastian said, his voice raw. "I didn't realize it was you. I didn't realize you were here, waiting, while I was busy being adequate." Clara stopped, her hand on the doorknob. The echo of her own diary words, "adequate husband," hit like a blade. He'd read everything. Knew everything. "That's why I have to leave," she said quietly. "Because you knowing doesn't change what we are. It just makes it hurt more." She left before he could respond. 2 days later, Clara's trunks were packed. The household moved around her with unusual quiet. Mrs. Gale supervised with grim efficiency. Mr. Pritchard handled travel arrangements without his usual dry commentary. Even the Dowager Duchess Miriam, Sebastian's mother, had arrived unexpectedly from her cottage. "Clara, dear, might I speak with you?" Miriam asked, her tone careful. Clara joined her in the morning room, bracing for criticism. Miriam had never been cruel, but she was tradition-minded, scandal-averse, and had definite opinions about proper Duchess behavior. "I understand you're leaving for Bath," Miriam began. "Just for a few weeks. Because Sebastian has been behaving unpredictably. Has he discussed this with you?" "He doesn't need to. I have eyes." Miriam poured tea with practiced grace. "Clara, I don't know what's happened between you. Sebastian won't say, and you clearly won't. But I want you to know something." "What?" "When you and Sebastian married, I thought it was a sensible match. Good families, appropriate connections, no messy emotions to complicate things." Miriam's voice softened. "I was wrong about the no emotions part." Clara's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "I mean I've watched you for 5 years. The way you manage his household, anticipate his needs, create peace in every room you enter. The way you look at him when you think no one notices." Miriam met her eyes. "And I've watched him not see any of it. Until now. He violated my privacy," Clara said quietly. "Read things I never meant anyone to see." "Then he was wrong. Terribly wrong." Miriam set down her teacup. "But Clara, if he's trying to make amends, if he's trying to change, shouldn't you at least see where it leads before you run?" "I'm not running. I'm protecting myself." "Those can be the same thing." Before Clara could respond, Sebastian appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted, his cravat slightly askew in a way that would have been unthinkable a week ago. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said. "Clara, your carriage is ready." "I wanted to," he stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "I wanted to give you this." He held out her diary, wrapped once more in the blue ribbon. Clara stared at it. "You're returning it." "I should never have taken it. Should never have read it." Sebastian's voice was steady despite obvious emotion. "I'm not asking forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I promise you, I will never touch it again unless you give me explicit permission. Your thoughts are yours, Clara. Always." Clara took the diary with trembling hands. The weight of it felt different now. Tainted by exposure but also somehow validated. He'd read her heart and hadn't mocked it. "Thank you," she managed. "One more thing." Sebastian produced a second book, new and leather-bound. "If you want to keep writing, write. If you ever want me to know what you're thinking, tell me. But I'll never assume access to your private thoughts again." He set the new diary on the table between them and stepped back. Miriam watched the exchange with sharp, knowing eyes, then stood. "I should check on Mrs. Gale. The woman becomes unbearable when there's travel chaos." She left them alone. Clara held her old diary against her chest, protective and uncertain. "I'm still leaving," she said. "I know. This doesn't fix it." "I know that too." Sebastian's eyes held hers. "But Clara, when you come back, if you come back, I'd like to try something." "What?" "Courtship. Inside the marriage we already have. Getting to know you the way I should have 5 years ago. No secrets this time. No assumptions. Just honest trying." He paused. "If you'll allow it." Clara didn't answer. Couldn't answer. She left for Bath with both diaries in her trunk and her heart in pieces, not sure if they were breaking further apart or finally starting to mend. 3. Bath was exactly what Clara needed: distance, quiet, and her Aunt Beatrice, who asked no questions and provided endless tea and sympathy without requiring explanations. But Clara couldn't stop thinking about Sebastian's face when he'd returned her diary. The genuine remorse. The promise. The new book, blank and waiting. She wrote in it the first night. "I don't know what I'm doing. I left Maromere to protect myself, but I brought both diaries, the one full of love and the new one he gave me. What does that mean? That I'm angry but hopeful? That I'm hurt but willing? I don't know who I am when I'm not playing Duchess. I've worn that role so long, I've forgotten what Clara Everdene wanted before she became Clara Wycliffe." Letters arrived from Maromere. Not grand declarations or flowery poetry. Just Sebastian, writing honest and steady. "Clara, I hope Bath is treating you well. Mr. Pritchard asked after you today and mentioned missing your organizational genius. The household accounts are apparently suffering from lack of sensible oversight. His words, not mine, though I agree completely. I miss you. Not the Duchess. You. S. Another letter, 3 days later. I've been thinking about Thornwood. I do remember that conversation now, though I'm ashamed it took your diary to make me see its importance. You asked about breeding roses, and I told you about my mother's garden, how she crossed varieties until she created something uniquely beautiful. I was talking about flowers. You were listening like I was talking about something that mattered. I should have seen you then. I'm trying to see you now. S. A week into her stay, a different letter arrived. The tenant situation you mentioned last month, the Hendersons and their leaking roof. I sent workers yesterday. They've repaired it fully. You were right that they were too proud to ask for help. I'm learning that you're right about many things I never thought to notice. S. Clara read that letter 3 times. He was acting, not just talking. Fixing things she'd cared about, making real changes. But doubt whispered, is this real, or is this guilt? Aunt Beatrice found her in the morning room, staring at Sebastian's letters. You look like someone trying to solve a particularly complicated puzzle, her aunt observed, settling into a chair with knitting. I don't know what to do. About your husband? Clara nodded. He read my diary. Discovered I've loved him for 5 years. Now he's suddenly attentive and kind, and I can't tell if it's real or just guilt making him perform differently. What does your instinct say? That I want to believe him. But that might just be 5 years of love making me see what I want to see. Aunt Beatrice's knitting needles clicked steadily. Clara, dear, let me tell you something I learned after 40 years of marriage to your uncle. Love isn't one grand gesture. It's 1,000 tiny choices made every day. Reading your diary was wrong. But the question isn't whether he made a mistake. It's whether he's choosing to change because of it. How do I know the difference? Time. Watching. Seeing if the changes last when you're not there to witness them. That's when Clara realized she didn't actually know if Sebastian's changes were lasting. She'd left too quickly, too hurt to watch. More letters arrived. Sebastian described small household changes, asked her opinion on estate decisions, and sent news without demanding her return. Mr. Pritchard wrote too, his letter characteristically dry. Your Grace, I feel compelled to report that His Grace has attempted to oversee household accounts himself in your absence. The results are best described as enthusiastically catastrophic. Mrs. Gale has banned him from the kitchen permanently after he somehow set water on fire. Don't ask me how, I don't understand it myself. In summary, please come home before he accidentally reorganizes us all into oblivion. Pritchard. Despite everything, Clara laughed. A real laugh, the kind she hadn't experienced in Bath despite the peace. Then a final letter arrived, different from the others. Clara, I won't beg you to come home. You deserve space to decide what you want, free from pressure. But I need to tell you something I should have said 5 years ago, 3 years ago, last month, yesterday. I don't love you because I read your diary. I'm beginning to love you because I finally started paying attention. I notice how you make everyone around you feel valued. I notice your humor that only appears with people you trust. I notice that you've been building a home while I've been maintaining a house, and I never thanked you for the difference. If you come back, I promise, no secrets, no assumptions, no performing. Just honest trying to build something real. If you don't come back, I'll understand. You deserve a husband who sees you. I'm trying to become him. Sebastian. Clara read the letter sitting in Aunt Beatrice's garden, the May sun warm on her face. She'd been in Bath 3 weeks. Long enough to miss home. Long enough to miss him. Not the duty-bound Duke. Sebastian. The man who was learning to see her. She packed her things that afternoon. On the journey home, Clara wrote in the new diary Sebastian had given her. I'm going back. Not because everything is fixed. Not because reading my diary didn't hurt. But because love isn't something that happens once and then freezes in place. It's something that grows or dies based on care and attention. Sebastian didn't see me for 5 years. But he's looking now. And I owe it to both of us to see where that looking leads. I loved him quietly for 5 years. Maybe it's time to love him loudly and see what happens. The carriage pulled up to Maromere House as the sun set, painting the old stone gold and rose. Sebastian must have been watching for her because he appeared at the door immediately, his face carefully controlled but his eyes bright with hope. Clara stepped down from the carriage. For a moment, they simply looked at each other across the gravel drive. "You came back," Sebastian said quietly. "I did." "Why?" Clara chose honesty. "Because you asked if you could court me inside our marriage. And I'm curious to see what that looks like." Relief and joy transformed Sebastian's face. He stepped forward, stopped himself, clearly unsure what was allowed. "May I take your hand?" he asked. Clara smiled despite her nervousness. "You may." His hand closed around hers, warm and steady. They stood like that for a long moment, married 5 years but starting over. "I have something to show you," Sebastian said. "If you're not too tired, show me." He led her through the house to the conservatory. There, in the corner near the windows, was a new rose bush, barely planted, its first blooms a stunning deep pink. "I wrote to my mother's old gardener," Sebastian explained. "Asked him about breeding roses. He helped me develop this variety." He touched one bloom gently. "It's called Clara's rose. The gardener says it took patience, attention, and careful nurturing." I told him that sounded appropriate. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. "Sebastian, I know one plant doesn't fix 5 years of blindness. But it's a start. Something growing that didn't exist before." He turned to face her fully. "Clara Wycliffe, may I court you? May I learn your favorite color, your favorite time of day, what makes you laugh, what makes you feel safe? May I try to become someone worthy of the love you've already given?" Clara looked at this man, her husband of 5 years and stranger of 5 years, now asking permission to know her. Asking to try. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, you may." They stood in the conservatory as night fell around them, 2 people beginning again. It wouldn't be easy. Trust took time to rebuild. But they had time. They had a marriage that could become more than duty. They had a chance. And that, Clara thought, was more than she'd had 3 weeks ago. 4. The courting began the next morning. Sebastian joined Clara for breakfast, not because duty required discussion, but because he wanted to. They talked about nothing important: the weather, the garden, Mrs. Gale's ongoing war with a mouse in the pantry. "She's named it Gerald," Sebastian said seriously, "and speaks to it like it's personally betraying her." Clara laughed, the sound genuine. "Gerald the mouse? She says it has a Gerald face." I didn't ask for clarification. These small moments accumulated. Sebastian asked about Clara's day, actually listening to answers. He remembered she preferred honey in tea. He noticed when she was tired and suggested rest instead of powering through social obligations. "You're working too hard," he said one afternoon, finding her surrounded by correspondence. "This is my job. Your job is to be Duchess, not to handle every single detail personally. Delegate. Mrs. Gale is capable. Mrs. Gale has her own responsibilities. Then we'll hire additional help." Sebastian sat beside her, reviewing the papers. "Clara, you've been managing a household that should require 3 people. Why haven't you asked for more staff?" Clara was quiet. Then, quietly, "Because I thought if I did everything perfectly, you'd notice me." The confession hung between them. Sebastian's face showed pain and understanding. "I should have noticed you without you working yourself to exhaustion," he said. "That was my failure, not yours." A crisis forced them into real teamwork 10 days after Clara's return. Winter storms, unusual for late May, damaged tenant cottages on the north edge of the estate. Roofs leaked, walls cracked, families needed immediate help. Clara organized relief supplies with Mrs. Gale's assistance, creating lists, coordinating volunteers, ensuring no family was forgotten. Sebastian surprised everyone by working alongside tenants instead of directing from a distance. Clara found him on a cottage roof, hammer in hand, actually repairing thatch with a farmer named Whitley. "Your Grace," Whitley said, clearly uncomfortable with ducal labor, "you don't need to." "I have hands, don't I?" Sebastian positioned another section of thatch. "Might as well use them for something practical." Clara watched from below, something warm unfurling in her chest. This wasn't the distant Duke of 5 years. This was a man learning to connect. That evening, exhausted and covered in mud, they collapsed in the library. Sebastian's careful grooming had dissolved entirely. His hair stood at odd angles, his shirt was torn, and he had straw in his cravat. "You look like you lost a fight with a barn," Clara observed. "I think I did." Sebastian tried to brush mud off his sleeve, succeeding only in spreading it further. How do farmers do this every day? Practice and not caring if they're covered in mud. Revolutionary concept. Sebastian looked at her, and suddenly they were both laughing, real and unforced. The kind of laughter that came from shared exhaustion and accomplishment. Mrs. Gale appeared with tea and biscuits, took one look at them, and shook her head. "You're both completely mad." And tracking mud everywhere. But she was smiling. Over the following days, Sebastian continued learning Clara. He discovered she loved mornings best, when the house was quiet and the light was soft. That she read poetry when she thought no one noticed. That she hummed while arranging flowers, unconscious and content. And Clara began learning Sebastian beyond the Duke facade. He was patient with tenants but impatient with social pretense. He had a dry wit that emerged when he felt safe. He missed his mother but found her expectations suffocating. He wanted to be good but wasn't always sure how. "I've spent so long being what everyone expects," he admitted one evening. "I forgot to figure out who I actually am." "Then figure it out now," Clara said. "You're 32, not 90. You have time." The Dowager Duchess Miriam visited again, ostensibly to check storm damage but actually to observe her son and daughter-in-law. She found them in the tenant cottages, covered in dust, laughing about something while directing repairs. If you're enjoying this story, I'd be so grateful for a like and subscribe. It helps me bring you more stories you'd love. That evening over dinner, Miriam watched them with thoughtful eyes. The way Sebastian automatically poured Clara's tea. The way Clara asked his opinion and he actually considered it. The way they'd begun unconsciously synchronizing, moving through space like partners. "You've changed," Miriam said to Sebastian after Clara excused herself to review accounts. "For the better, I hope." "Yes." Miriam sipped wine. "Though I confess, I don't entirely understand how." "What happened?" Sebastian chose honesty. "I realized I'd been given something precious 5 years ago and treated it like obligation. I'm trying not to make that mistake anymore." "Does Clara know you feel this way?" "I'm trying to show her. Words are easy. Actions matter more." Miriam smiled, genuine warmth transforming her usually stern face. "You're finally growing up, Sebastian. I'm rather proud." Later that night, Sebastian found Clara in the library, the new diary he'd given her open on her lap. She closed it quickly when he entered. "I'm sorry," Sebastian said immediately. "I should have knocked. It's your library too. But it's your private writing." He stayed near the door. "I meant what I said, Clara. I'll never read without permission again." Clara studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she held out the diary. "Would you like to read this entry?" Sebastian's breath caught. "Are you sure?" "No. But I'm offering anyway." He took the diary carefully, handling it like precious glass. Clara had written, 3 weeks since I came back from Bath. Sebastian is trying so hard it breaks my heart and mends it simultaneously. He's learning me the way I've always known him. He notices things, how I take tea, when I need quiet, what makes me smile. But I'm afraid. Afraid this is temporary. Afraid when the novelty fades, we'll return to being strangers who share a house. Afraid to believe this is real. But I want to believe. God, I want to believe so badly. Sebastian looked up, his eyes bright. "It's real. Clara, I promise you, this is real." "How do I know?" "Time. Watching. Seeing if I keep choosing you when it's not new anymore." He returned the diary. "Ask me in 6 months. A year. 5 years. I'll still be choosing you." Clara felt something unlock in her chest. Not complete trust yet. But the beginning of it. "There's something I need to tell you," she said. "About Thornwood. About why that moment mattered so much." "You don't have to." "I want to." Clara set the diary aside. "I was 21. My family had money enough for respectability but not comfort. I'd been taught to be decorative and gracious and useful, but I wasn't beautiful like my sister. I wasn't witty like my cousin. I was just plain Clara who liked books and numbers. Sebastian started to protest, but she held up a hand. At Thornwood, Lady Pemberton announced loudly that plain girls shouldn't waste pretty dresses. Everyone heard. Everyone pretended not to. I hid behind the rose arbor to cry where no one would see. Then you found me. I remember now, Sebastian said quietly. You were examining roses like they were the most interesting things you'd ever seen. Because you made them interesting. You sat down and talked about breeding roses, about patience and care creating beauty. You made me feel like intelligence mattered more than prettiness. Like my interest in how things worked was valuable. Clara's voice softened. You made me feel seen. For the first time in my life, someone saw me and thought I was enough. Clara. I fell in love with you that day. Completely. Impossibly. And when our families arranged the marriage 2 months later, I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd chosen me because you felt it too. She smiled sadly. But you hadn't. You'd agreed to duty. I was just the acceptable option. Sebastian moved to sit beside her, close but not touching. You were never just acceptable. I was just too blind to see beyond duty to the person in front of me. And now I see you. And I'm falling in love with what I see. He took her hand carefully. Not because I read your diary. Because you're brilliant and funny and you hum when you arrange flowers and you've made this cold house feel like home. I'm falling in love with you, Clara. The real you. Clara felt tears slip down her cheeks. You can't just say that. Why not? Because I need time to trust it. To believe it's not just guilt or novelty or temporary change. Then take all the time you need, Sebastian said gently. I'll keep showing you. Every day. Until you believe it. They sat together in the library, hands joined, something fragile and new growing between them. Trust would take time. But they had time now. They had truth between them instead of performance. They had a chance to become real. 6 months passed. Not the dramatic transformation of storybooks, but the slow, steady work of building trust and partnership. Sebastian continued choosing Clara every day in small ways that accumulated into significance. He asked her opinion on estate decisions and implemented her suggestions. He stopped apologizing for needing her and started thanking her for choosing to be present. He learned she liked quiet mornings and protected them fiercely, refusing social obligations before noon. And Clara learned to let him in. Slowly, cautiously, but genuinely. She shared her thoughts without waiting to be asked. She let him see her frustration, her joy, her uncertainty. She stopped performing Duchess and started being Clara. You're different, Mrs. Gale observed one morning, finding Clara laughing at something Mr. Pritchard had said about the accounts. How so? Lighter. Like you've finally stopped holding your breath. Clara considered that. It was true. She'd spent 5 years holding her breath, waiting for Sebastian to notice her, afraid to take up space. Now she breathed freely. The Dowager Duchess Miriam visited for Christmas. She found Sebastian and Clara decorating together, arguing good-naturedly about ribbon placement. No, Sebastian, you cannot put all the gold ribbons on one side. That's not how symmetry works. I like asymmetry. It's unexpected. It's chaos. Creative expression. You're impossible. You married me. An arranged marriage. I had no choice. They both stopped, the old pain of those words hanging for a moment. Then Clara smiled, transforming the meaning. Though I'm choosing to keep you now. Despite your terrible decorating instincts. Sebastian grinned, pulling her close. Lucky me. Miriam watched them with satisfaction. This was partnership. This was love built on foundation rather than floating on feeling. One February evening, Sebastian found Clara in the conservatory, sitting beside Clara's rose, which had thrived despite winter. She held both diaries in her lap, the old one full of 5 years of secret love, the new one chronicling 6 months of real courtship. Which one are you reading? Sebastian asked, sitting beside her. Both. Comparing. Clara looked at him. The old one is full of longing. Hoping you'd notice me. The new one is full of you actually noticing. It's strange seeing them side by side. Do you regret the 5 years? Clara thought carefully. I regret that we wasted them. But I don't regret loving you through them. That love taught me who I was. What I wanted. It prepared me for this. For what? For choosing you back when you finally chose me. She set the diaries aside. Sebastian, I need to tell you something. What? I'm not afraid anymore. For 6 months I've been waiting for you to return to the distant Duke. For the attention to fade. For duty to replace choice. Clara took his hand. But you've proven yourself. Every single day. You've shown me this is real. Relief and joy transformed Sebastian's face. It is real. It's the most real thing I've ever felt. Then I have something for you. Clara handed him the new diary, open to a recent entry. Sebastian read aloud, his voice catching. Today Sebastian defended a tenant against his own bailiff, insisting fairness mattered more than tradition. Today he asked what I wanted for dinner, not because we had guests but because my preference mattered. Today he brought me tea without being asked and stayed to talk about nothing important. Today I watched him and thought, I loved him for 5 years in silence. Now I love him loudly, and he loves me back. I think this is what happy feels like. I think we're finally real. Sebastian looked up, his eyes bright. Clara. I love you, she said clearly. Not because you're a duke. Not because duty requires it. Because you chose to see me, chose to change, chose to build this with me. I love you, Sebastian Whitecliffe. Loudly. With my whole heart. Sebastian pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. I love you. God, Clara, I love you. I'm sorry it took me so long to realize it. Sorry you had to love me alone for 5 years. We're together now. That's what matters. They stayed in the conservatory as night fell, Clara's rose blooming beside them, 2 people who'd started as duty and became choice. Became partnership. Became love. Later, Sebastian knelt before Clara formally, ring in hand. What are you doing? Clara laughed through tears. I never proposed properly. We just signed documents and showed up at the church. Sebastian's voice was steady, serious. Clara Whitecliffe, born Everdene, you've been my wife for 5 years. But I'm asking now, with my whole heart, will you choose to stay my wife? Will you build this life with me? Will you let me spend the rest of my days proving I see you, value you, love you? That's not how marriage works. We're already married. Then call it a renewal. A fresh start. A proper beginning. Sebastian met her eyes. I'm asking permission, Clara. Permission to love you the way you deserved from the start. Clara slid to her knees before him, eye to eye. Yes. Yes, I choose you. Yes, I'll stay. Yes to all of it. They kissed then, finally, properly, with nothing between them but truth and choice and love earned through patient trying. Mrs. Gale found them later, still in the conservatory, holding each other like they'd just discovered something precious. Well, she said, trying for stern and failing completely. I suppose you'll be wanting special dinner then? Something celebratory? Just family dinner, Clara said, not letting go of Sebastian. Nothing fancy. Just us. With extra dessert, Sebastian added. You're both completely mad. Mrs. Gale smiled. I'll tell Cook. That evening, seated at dinner with Mr. Pritchard providing dry commentary and Mrs. Gale pretending to disapprove while secretly delighted, Sebastian and Clara celebrated not a new beginning but a true one. To 5 years of Clara loving me when I didn't deserve it, Sebastian said, raising his glass. To 6 months of you finally noticing, Clara countered. To many more years of loving each other loudly, they said together. Later, in the library that had witnessed so many quiet moments and revelations, Clara wrote in her diary. Today Sebastian proposed. We're already married, but today we chose it. He read my diary 6 months ago, a violation that became revelation. He learned my heart uninvited, but then spent 6 months earning the right to hold it. This isn't the love story I imagined 5 years ago. It's better. Because it's real. Because we chose each other with eyes open and hearts honest. Because love isn't something that happens once. It's something you build, day by day, choice by choice. Today we chose each other. Tomorrow we'll choose again. And the day after. That's marriage. That's partnership. That's love. She closed the diary, set it aside, and went to find her husband. Not the Duke. Sebastian. Her Sebastian, who'd learned to see her, who'd learned to love her, who'd proven that sometimes the best love stories start with duty and become choice. Clara's rose bloomed in the conservatory. The household settled into comfortable rhythms. And two people who'd lived beside each other for 5 years finally started living together, building something real from the foundation of patient, persistent trying. The arranged marriage had become real love. Not because a diary was read, but because two people chose truth over performance, chose growth over stagnation, chose each other every single day. And that, they both knew, was better than any storybook ending. Because it was theirs. Real, earned, and true.